Ahead on America This Week.
I did know this was
Ahead on America This Week.
I did know this was coming, but not for the reasons people think. I knew it was coming because I prayed over it.
It's the interview you don't want to miss. I talk with Roger Stone about what's ahead for him now that he's a free man.
And so they knew they were lying. He told them to talk to the on-campus doctor. They refused to do so.
Plus, Liberty University President Jerry Falwell is here. He just sued the New York Times. I'm also talking one-on-one with the National Press Secretary for the Trump re-election campaign, Hogan Gidley. The president of Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton, joins me. Former NFL player turned pastor, Jack Brewer, is here.
I mean, I told Jimi Hendrix he was going to die. I told Keith Moon he was going to die. I told John Belushi he's going to die.
And the Motor City madman himself, Ted Nugent, joins me to talk rock and roll, guns, and everything in between. That's all right now on America This Week.
Not only did I write Wango Tango, I actually meant it.
Welcome to America This Week. Each week I tackle the issues you're not hearing about in the mainstream media with the biggest political players in the country and more. And left or right, I ask the tough questions they're just not used to being asked. The cancel culture is the subject of tonight's memo. 2020 has been one hell of a year so far, with COVID-19 killing hundreds of thousands of Americans and protests and riots rocking our streets. And with this being a presidential election year, it all adds up to a massive bonfire of divisiveness burning through our city streets, our TV screens, and our dinner tables. Cancel culture in America is ablaze. Not just a smoldering pit of red embers. Literally and figuratively, our culture is on fire. Everything in our culture seems to have a racial component to it too now. Watch. Look at the New York Times, the bestseller list. Race dominates the titles. White fragility, how to be an anti-racist. So you want to talk about race, just a few of the titles. The Washington Redskins have retired their team name and logo. A simple show of support for a seated president earned Goya CEO Bob Unanue a boycott. Now, Bob's a friend of mine, a really good guy, very religious. Bob's family came from Spain and grew a small store into an international success. That should give hope to all people who weren't born with money, affluence, or privilege. But Bob and Goya were canceled by the mob over an innocent comment about the president. To cancel someone, meaning to get them fired, force them to quit their jobs, and or berate them publicly in order to ruin their personal lives, is a relatively new phenomenon. It starts with a comment. In some cases, the comment may be a simple opinion that, on its surface, didn't seem that bad, like, all lives matter. Or in Bob's case, I support the president. It merely disagrees with the cancel culture mob's way of thinking. Then the CC mob pulls out the big gun. They load it with the high caliber ammo, and they fire away at the unsuspecting target. Boom. You're a racist is levied against the target. Within minutes, the cancel culture mob piles on social media, calling attention to the declared racist comment. From there, it should only take a short time before the target has apologized and been fired. Canceled. Racist is the preferred ammo. Preferred because of its power and fear-stoking ability. It's so powerful that targets rarely get a chance to explain themselves before they're summarily canceled. No opportunity to explain is given. Target canceled. Mob mission accomplished. This is playing out across America. The fear is real. The casualty, however, is free speech. Just look at a list of just a fraction of the people getting canceled for doing nothing more than expressing an opinion. Drew Brees for his support of the American flag, canceled almost. Stan Wisniewski, the Philadelphia Inquirer's top editor, lost his job for a headline saying, "Buildings matter too," after rioting in the street. That guy canceled. New York Times opinion editor James Bennett had to resign after publishing an op-ed from a seated U.S. Senator, Tom Cotton, that argued the president should send troops to stop the riots. Bennett canceled. I don't know how this ends, but it's clear it can't continue this way. No one will be left to work, to create, to invent, to innovate. I mean, who's going to want to take a chance on a movie script or writing the lyrics to a song or a monologue for that matter? If all speak has to be acceptable speak, we're doomed to a life of a manila envelope, or worse, life as it is in communist countries like China, North Korea, or Iran. Speech there is regulated. People fear every word out of their mouths lest they be tossed in jail or internment camps. Yep, still happening in those places. Just look at this, folks. A mute white people sticker can be added to any Instagram post. Don't you see it? The mob is winning. They're canceling any speech they disagree with. They're literally putting their collective hands over the mouths of Americans. The mob is rewriting the Constitution without going through that burdensome task of actually getting the approval of the American people. But it's got to stop. We are America. We're founded on a right to speak freely, not fear the government nor the mob. Look, we debate, we disagree, we negotiate, we decide, and we move on. We don't cancel people for ideas or opinions. We embrace the diversity of opinion, not ruin people's lives for having a unique idea or opinion. Let's get back to that. Let's ditch this stupid experiment where every word has to be vetted by the cancel culture mob. They don't have a right to do that in America. Not yet, at least. We're so happy to have our next guest with us. I interviewed him 2 weeks ago as he was getting ready to possibly head off to prison. Instead, Roger Stone is a free man. Now, Roger, I'm glad this didn't have to be a jailhouse interview. Congratulations from all of us, the American people. You're free. You're commuted.
Yes. Look, first of all, I need to thank God Almighty because I prayed for this. But obviously, I also need to thank the President of the United States, who in his mercy and justice granted me this act of clemency. He understood this was a life and death matter. It wasn't just a political or a legal matter. Despite all precedents in all the courts, despite the policy of the Bureau of Prisons and the Department of Justice, the judge in my case was intent on sending me at 67 years old and with underlying health problems to a prison where we now know there are over 80 confirmed cases of coronavirus. This was, in essence, a death sentence. My appeal would never have reached the courts because it would have died with me. So I am extremely thankful to the president. I also resent now all those coming forward and saying, oh, Stone had knowledge of misconduct or inappropriate activity by the president, and he concealed it in return for an act of clemency, which was a commutation. That is a lie. And Robert Mueller and his dirty cops had 3 years to try to prove that. They had every ounce of evidence surrounding me. They had all of my electronic devices, all my emails, all my text messages, all my phone calls. And therefore, when the Washington Post says it, and they attribute it to Howard Feynman, because it's a bastardization of what I have said, which is that the Mueller clan leaned on me heavily to provide false testimony against the president, and I refused. I really resent this. I resent being called a Russian agent by Adam Schiff. You had 3 years to prove that I was working for the Russians. I am a loyal American. I have no Russian connections. They take innocent communications that were reported to them earlier that they were well aware of, and they completely misrepresent them as some kind of seditious, treasonous activity with the Russians. Eric, it is outrageous. Mueller, Rosenstein, Weissman, the whole crowd, they're right back to the very beginning. All the stuff they couldn't prove about me or the president during their witch hunt.
Yeah.
So
Roger, I want to. There's so many things to unpack there. Let's start with the accusation kind of levied towards Mueller and the investigators. Well, how did they want you to lie for them? What did they specifically? What were they looking for? What were they pushing you to do?
Jeannie Rhee, who was one of the prosecutors, who interestingly enough worked for Mueller's law firm, and who actually represented Hillary in the missing email and illegal email server case, being an egregious conflict because the judge said at my sentencing that that's what my case was actually about. at the end of one of the hearings back in March of last year, said to one of my attorneys they'd like to meet privately, and they did. And she proposed in very cautious language that if your client, Roger Stone, would come clean, if he would confess, if he would remember the content of multiple phone calls between myself and candidate Trump in 2016, well, they laid out some vague promise of leniency. My lawyers can't make a decision for me, obviously. We had a conference call of all my attorneys, and I said absolutely, positively not. I will not bear false witness against the president.
That's what they do. That's what they do. I mean, they're doing that with Ghislaine Maxwell right now. They offer some sort of immunity or a lesser sentence if you spill the beans, you didn't, or you didn't have any, whatever the case may be. I want to talk a little bit about this. Some people are saying Roger Stone knew he was going to be commuted. His sentence was going to be commuted prior. Did the president or anyone give you a heads up on that?
Absolutely not. There were never any conversations formally or informally between my lawyers and the lawyers at the White House, between my lawyers or myself or any representative of mine with the people at the White House. There's no question that friends of mine were advocating to the president that it was the right thing to do. And when they realized I was being sent to a prison that was life-threatening, I'm sure that they stepped up their activities, but there's nothing improper about that. I did know this was coming, but not for the reasons people think. I knew it was coming because I prayed over it, because I took the advice of Reverend Franklin Graham back in January, and I was reborn. I reaffirmed my belief in Jesus Christ. I saw Howard Feynman mocking me for that yesterday on MSNBC. I find that outrageous. Now, people are allowed to believe whatever they want. And I can understand cynics saying, well, that's a ploy on Stone's part. That's a head fake. That's an appeal for sympathy. Say whatever you want. I don't care. Because he knows what's in my heart.
Roger.
But I don't question whether Howard Feynman is a devout Jew. Why is he questioning whether I am a devout Christian? So my certitude was based only in my faith in the Lord, not because I had the high sign from somebody at the White House, not because I had a promise from the president. I had no communication with the president, who I love, for over 2 years now.
All right, Roger, I want to get this in because we're going to run out of time. Roger Stone is a very talented man. He's a very smart man. He's a very political person. You want Roger on your side, not against you. Does Roger Stone have a target now that you're a free man, that you want to go after someone for wronging either you or someone else or the president? Who should be watching their back right now?
Actually, that you speak of the old Roger Stone. One of the things that the Bible teaches you is that vengeance belongs to God, and that you can pray that God will do the right thing. But Hebrews 30:31 tells us that vengeance belongs to the Lord, and that it is a fearful thing to be in the eye of a living God. So I know that those who are wrongdoers, who have wronged the president, wronged General Flynn, wronged me, they will pay a price, but not from Roger Stone. They will pay a price from God Almighty.
All right, 15 seconds left. Roger, what's next for Roger Stone? What's on your it's 3 months, 6 month window?
I need to finish a book about this whole ordeal because I see that Andrew Weissman is writing a book, and people are going to want to go someplace for the truth and not that pack of lies. So I have a book coming. And then I've got to go find a job. I mean, as you know, I've lost everything in this fight financially, my home, my savings, my insurance, and I haven't been able to make a living for almost 2 years. So I have to go out and find a job. I'm going to probably do a syndicated radio show. I will probably do a podcast. I will continue writing, but I will independently do everything I possibly can to get the president reelected. No, I did not trade that for a commutation. That's nonsense. No, I'm not looking for a job in the Trump campaign. I'm not interested in that, but I will do everything I can, writing and speaking on my own, activism on my own, to get the president reelected, because he's the only thing that stands between us and this country going over the cliff to globalism.
Roger Stone, everybody. Thank you for your time, Roger.
Thank you, Eric.
There's big news involving Liberty University. Joining me now to give us the details is the university's president, Jerry Falwell, Jr., and his lovely wife, Becky. Thank you for joining us again on America This Week. Okay, Jerry, let's go. A big lawsuit. You're suing the New York Times. Tell us about it.
Well, you know, they published in March a story that was completely made up, that there was a COVID outbreak caused by Liberty allowing students to come back after spring break. Only 1,200 out of 8,000 came back because they had nowhere else to go. A lot of other schools did the same thing. We had 0 cases among students, faculty, or staff the whole spring semester. They reported we had 12 students with COVID symptoms, and they got their information from a doctor 10 miles away from Liberty, and he made it clear to them that he was talking about that he had seen students with an upper respiratory infection, which is not consistent with COVID. COVID is a lower respiratory infection. And so they knew they were lying. He told them to talk to the on-campus doctor. They refused to do so. And so they just flat out lied. And, you know, there really wasn't even a single COVID case in the city of Lynchburg when they ran these stories. But it scared the whole community that we were allowing students who had elderly relatives at home, who didn't have high-speed internet for online education, and international students to live in the dorms, even though we were practicing every state mandated requirement, social distancing, takeout food, everything that was required at the time. No gatherings bigger than large 10 people, no gatherings larger than 10 people. And so we did everything by the book. We had 0 cases. We became a model for other schools to follow. But yet they reported, and hundreds of news outlets, or at least dozens, picked up the story from the New York Times, did irreparable damage to our school. We're going to court. They picked on the wrong conservative, because we're one of the few conservative organizations that have the resources to fight them, and they will. They're not going to be happy. But any money we win, we've already decided we're going to donate it to charities committed to helping people with COVID-19. So we're not looking for money. We're looking for, we want to expose the New York Times for the liars and the BuzzFeed clickbait organization they've become.
Okay, Jerry, let me stay with you a second. Becky, hang on just for a minute, because there's so much to this lawsuit that I want to talk about. You say they intentionally falsified and made defamatory claims. You say they misrepresented the sources you just pointed out. You know, these are big, especially the New York Times. It's the paper of record. It's the old gray lady, as they say. Typically, that should be showing all sides of the story. Here's my question: did they contact you for comment, Jerry? And if they did they put it in the piece?
They were here the whole week, but they never called our doctor. They never called us. They waited till Sunday afternoon, the 29th, I believe, and they gave us 2 hours to respond, knowing that nobody would be at work. And we gave them a brief response, but we didn't know, really. We didn't have the information we needed to respond. But the story was already written, and it just shows how devious and evil these people are.
They've been on campus trespassing.
Yeah, no, Becky, I want you to weigh in. Tell us the damage that you and the university and the student body has been inflicted upon you and the student body from this type of journalism.
The damage was horrible. We were trending. Everybody thought Jerry was murdering his students. The way they exposed us and what they said, we had 12 cases when we actually had 0 cases, and scared the whole town. The fear that they placed on us and the negative attention that we got, because we were being a Christian university.
And the mayor.
And the mayor and the city manager also attacked us. And we were a Christian university, and we were doing what we thought was best to protect our students and to protect the people living in town. And we had no choice. And for them to trespass and come on campus, and from COVID hotspots, exactly, from hotspots, they came on campus and ignored all the warnings, and they could have brought it on our campus and given our students, exposed them to COVID, but they didn't care about it because they wanted to lie, because we're a conservative Christian university, And it was all politics. It was all political. Jerry supports President Trump, and they have a hatred. All of this is based on their hatred for President Trump, and they just like to attack people that are conservative.
But we had no trespassing signs at every entrance, probably 25 or more, everywhere. So they knew they were trespassing, and they didn't care. And
they took the photographer took a picture of the no trespassing sign.
And published it.
And published it as part of our article.
But the mayor and the city manager of Lynchburg believed all these lies and attacked us publicly, and I'm still waiting for an apology. I sent them both a text. I said, when is my apology coming after we had 0 cases? I still haven't heard from either one of those ladies.
All right, we ran out of time. I want to talk to you about this more, and we'll bring it back on, but I think it is important to note that you're suing the paper, you're suing the reporter, and you're suing the photographer. You know, a lot of times a reporter will be biased and they'll put something out there. It has to go through an editor, so the paper can't say they didn't know what happened. It always goes through editors. We saw James Bennett being fired or summarily canceled because of some of the reportage that he allowed into his paper. So they're clearly they clearly know about it.
And isn't it ironic that Barry Weiss left the day before we filed the lawsuit? We've been working on this lawsuit for months. So I think that's a little bit providential, don't you?
I'm just here to ask the questions, Jerry. I'm just here. Jerry, good friends, Jerry and Becky Falwell. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Bye-bye.
And we're pleased to welcome back good friend of the show, good friend of mine, Hogan Gidley. He's the National Press Secretary for the Trump campaign, the re-election campaign. Thank you for joining us, Hogan. Let's start with the Biden speech yesterday. This week, we talked a little bit about what was going on, this $2 trillion in taxes. That was a red flag for me. What about you? What does the campaign see as some of the weaknesses in that Biden speech?
It's not just necessarily the speech, which was horrible in its own delivery and the way Joe Biden likes to talk to the people, but the policies were developed basically from the socialist wing of the party. I mean, he parroted and plagiarized the Bernie Sanders of the world, the AOCs of the world. That should be most concerning to the American people. I mean, he bragged about getting rid of 10 million jobs associated with the oil and gas industries. I mean, that's a dangerous place to be for the economic well-being, our safety and security throughout the world. I mean, he wants us to become dependent on foreign nations for our energy sources. That's a complete difference between what Joe Biden wants and what President Trump wants, and quite frankly has done. We're now energy independent in this country. We're not beholden to those in the Middle East or the whims of Russia for our oil and gas. Our prices aren't pegged to those foreign nations. And now Joe Biden wants to take us back and make us dependent on those other places. That's nowhere the American people want to be. It's dangerous, not just for national security, but also it hurts families. I mean, talk about a tax increase. You pointed out $2 trillion. He actually bragged in totality about $4 trillion. Hillary Clinton ran on $2 trillion in tax increases and lost. And Joe Biden was waiting in the wings saying, here, hold my beer. I'm going to double that and make it worse on the American people. It's incredible what he's trying to pass off as good policy.
See, there you go, Hogan. We've been friends a long time. You're press secretary. That line was great. Here, hold my beer. You could have just upped the game a little bit and said, hold my Corona. That would have been a killer line. I watched this, and I think a lot of people were waiting for Joe Biden to stumble or to have some sort of brain freeze where he would forget where he was or forget a line. He didn't seem to do that. So let's take this a little step forward. President Trump has said Joe Biden doesn't know where he is half the time. Did he kind of re-earn some of his credibility in that speech?
Well, look, Joe Biden is going to make mistakes. He's going to make gaffes. He's going to say the wrong town. He's going to point to weird stories in his past about how children love to rub his leg hair. That's just who he is. But the media is going to cover for that. The real issue with Joe Biden are his policies. And let's be clear, you don't have to guess what an economy under Joe Biden would look like. We saw it for 8 years. Depressed wages, 60,000 manufacturing plants closed, 700,000 jobs lost just because of his NAFTA position. China got 3.5 million of our jobs because of the policies Joe Biden put in place because of his decisions. You don't have to guess. Also, look at our city streets, our safety and security of our American families. You don't have to guess what a Joe Biden America could look like when people were looting and rioting and beating people within an inch of their lives just for protecting their own businesses. Innocent Americans suffered. Joe Biden said nothing. And when he finally came out of the basement bunker, he says, hey, I think defunding the police is something we should look at. We should explore. And some of these police officers are enemies to the American people. That's dangerous. So make no mistake, our jobs aren't safe with Joe Biden. Our families aren't safe with Joe Biden. Our American way of life sure isn't safe with Joe Biden. And it's because his policies are waging war on all three.
You know, I have about 30 seconds or so. And the question is, he's been in Congress. He's been in government for 47 years. He has a lot of complaining going on for the way things are now, and he's had a ton of time to make some changes. Final thought.
Absolutely. Look, Donald Trump's been president for 3 years. He's running on his record. Joe Biden has been in office for half of a century and is running on things he wants to do. He's running on things he wishes that could happen. He's been in the seat of power. If only Joe Biden had an elected office from which he could make these changes, maybe even close to the president. That's right. He was vice president for 8 years and did nothing. And the things he did put in place only went to hurt the American people and crush the American middle class. Donald Trump has rebuilt all that. A Joe Biden presidency would take us backwards, not forwards. It would be a loss to America.
Hogan Gidley, next time you're in town and we're in a pub together, I'm going to ask you, hold my Corona. Hogan, thank you very much. You know,
Absolutely.
for weeks now, we've been emailing the Biden campaign to come on this show. It's just a small sample of the requests we've made right here. I mean, pages of this. We haven't heard back from them at all. So if anyone from the Biden campaign is watching, let us know a time and a place, and I'll make sure you will be on this show. We'll get to you. We'll come to you. It doesn't matter. Middle of the night, we'll send a camera crew, and we'll do this on our show. So, extended invitation. Mr. Biden, what do you say?
Because when they come to my ranch, and when I'm on the tour, we go to the gun range with a bunch of left-wing goofballs, and they love to shoot.
It's the Motor City Madman himself. Ted Nugent is here. Trust me, you don't want to miss this interview.
America, one nation, from Florida to St. Louis to Seattle. America This Week, America's fastest growing political show, delivers facts, not falsehoods.
Well, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I appreciate the opportunity to clear some of it up.
Hard-edged opinions.
We can no longer rely on China to be the primary producer of so many critical products that we need at a time of crisis.
Tough topic debates.
Has the mainstream media vetted Joe Biden the way they vetted others on the right?
I just believe that all women have the right to speak their truth and that those truths should also be investigated. The end, regardless of what political party they are a part of.
America This Week reveals the topics and issues that pulse throughout America. Fighting COVID-19.
We're working with every single state to be able to detect outbreaks before they spread into the community.
And the path forward.
Getting back to some degree of normality, that will come. We will get over this.
America This Week investigates chaos at the southern border.
Go, 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 go.
The poisoning of America.
It's in the soils, it's in the water, and it's in our blood.
Toxic chemicals linked to multiple cancers found in towns across America.
We were poisoned, and we are still poisoned.
Almost every day, there is a new community that is finding out that their water is contaminated.
America This Week relentlessly seeks the truth on your behalf.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America This Week. This week, I had a chance to talk one-on-one exclusively with the legendary rocker and gun rights activist, Ted Nugent. Take a listen. I mean, I have to set the stage here. I got to do this. I grew up in high school. I listened to Ted Nugent religiously. With Stranglehold, Cat Scratch Fever, Wango Tango. Nuge, man, you're a legend around my parts.
Well, real Motor City music has a certain piss and vinegar factor, and I always could tell by your swagger that you must have been raised on my music. So we are musical American, hell-raising, sonic bombast blood brothers, and I'm still making this music. I got the greatest band in the world. My guitars are breeding right now. I have a breeding herd of Gibson Birdlands that are preparing for the next assault because I couldn't do it this year, and we're heartbroken. I had to cancel the tour.
Not only are they bringing your guitars sing, and they sing beautiful music, Ted. Let's talk a little bit about your political. I don't know. You got some politics in your blood. You're a pro-Trump guy. Tell us about that.
Well, I'm a truth, logic, and common sense guy. You know, I'm a hell raised in Detroit. I am the Motor City Madman. And not only did I write Wango Tango, I actually meant it. So I know how to let the beast run wild and pursue liberty, life, and happiness via this incredible American rhythm and blues rock and roll soundtrack. But ultimately, Eric, not just at the end of the day, but all day long, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, I'm a brother, I'm a neighbor, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a small business owner. I'm in the asset column. My parents raised me with discipline to always be the best that you can be. And I see that Donald J. Trump, hallelujah, is not an entrenched status quo, power-abusing, criminal, punk-ass politician. He's a hellraiser, working hard, playing hard guy that got us back to God, family, country, work ethic, independence. You know, the man in the arena. You bust your ass to be in the asset column, earn your own way, you know, live within your means, save for a rainy day, you know, all that radical extreme stuff. And he's my guy. I really love this guy. He came just in the nick of time. And I'm speaking for all my hunting buddies, all my musicians, my band, my crew, my family, my neighbors, the cops that I train with, the military heroes that I hunt with. I'm speaking for the heart and soul of this country when I talk like this.
You know, there's a certain amount of metaphor here. Ted Nugent is a supporter, avid supporter of Donald Trump. You know, I read this week, Joe Biden got some support from James Taylor.
Well, you know, I got to tell you, I know a lot of these people in the entertainment world. And I mean, I told Jimi Hendrix he was going to die. I told Keith Moon he was going to die. I told John Belushi he's going to die. I literally looked him in the eye. And these people live in such a, whether it's literally a drugged out, drunken fantasy world or figuratively speaking, a drug, you know, stone fantasy world. These people have, remember I just mentioned my ranching buddies, my hunting buddies, all the working hard, playing hard neighbors here in Texas and in Michigan. Plus, Eric, I have family and friends in all 50 states. I hunt and rock and roll in all 50 states. I know these people. And the entertainment industry has intentionally removed them from the heartland, you know, flyover America. Not all of them, but when you see somebody step out and wear a Che Guevara shirt, when Che Guevara would have killed the dumb son of a you gotta just wince and furrow your brow and plow forward with truth, logic, common sense, God, family, country. And that's what we're doing.
And you bring up Hollywood, and it's the celebrity class. Let's call them the celebrity class. You know, they're very much against owning firearms. Now, I know, Ted, you're a pro Second Amendment guy. You're all about it, and I agree with you 100%. I got a couple of my own and proudly own them and tell people I own them. Celebrities will say, don't own guns, they're bad. But then they'll be protected by a group of people who are what? Packing heat.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, but I got to tell you, a lot of people that we could mention right now that are deep in the left-wing liability column, they do own guns. They do believe in self-defense. I mean, here we are in 2020, Eric, and I use the term believe in self-defense. How have we plummeted into the abyss of denial and dependency where believing in self-defense is politically incorrect? God gave us this gift of life, and I'm not going to name names because if they don't want to come out and admit they believe in self-defense or admit that they love guns and enjoy guns, because when they come to my ranch and when I'm on the tour, we go to the gun range with a bunch of left-wing goofballs, and they love to shoot, and they know that they have an obligation, moral and intellectual and spiritual, to protect families. You can't do it without a gun. So keep means it's mine, you can't have it. Bear means I have a couple on me right now and they're loaded.
We have a lot more from this interview. We'll show you part 2 with Ted Nugent on next week's show. Let's hear from both sides of the aisle here, going head-to-head. The new member of the President's National Security Education Board, host of America First on Salem Radio and Sinclair Media, contributor Sebastian Gorka, and Sinclair political commentator Amisha Cross. I have a couple of topics I want to get to, so let's not spend too much time on the first one, but we got to talk about it. Amisha, Biden's speech, what did you hear?
I heard a lot of good things. First and foremost, Biden is taking it very seriously when it comes to climate change and the reforms necessary to make sure not only that America and our environment is sustainable, but also building forth a bed for jobs and opportunity. 18 million Americans are out of work. With new jobs, with the influx of a lot of the planning that has gone into the direction for his plan of creating a new jobs initiative specifically designed for climate change and the prevention of a lot of the climate crises we've seen across this country, I think that this is a very good step forward.
Okay, and Sebastian, have we proven in America that the green agenda produces any jobs at all and is actually economical?
No, it's clear it's going to destroy jobs. This is Biden, the empty shell, a man who clearly has cognitive mental capacity issues, surrendering, genuflecting at the altar of the neo-Marxists and the extreme leftists. The Green New Deal, I said it a year ago, is socialism wrapped up in environmentalism. This is a plan that will ban prime gasoline and will make it impossible for Americans to fly, and says that beef, Eric, is bad. It's sheer insanity and is an indication of just how much a radical party the Democrats have become. And Biden's the puppet.
So let me stay on that topic of genuflecting at the altar of another group. Let's talk about the Goya, what happened with the CEO of Goya, Bobby Nyanwe. Mentioned that he was a fan of the president. He simply said that. Boy, there was a cancel culture uproar. They tried to cancel Goya. And I'm just going to point it out here. One of our producers here was involved in a don't cancel Goya. As of this taping, almost $250,000 has been raised. In looking for 10,000, they're up to $250,000. Continues to go up higher. What about the cancel culture, Sebastian? It's getting scarier and scarier, darker and darker out there.
Yeah. So Goya, let's talk about a 3-generation Latino success story in America, and the head of that organization, that company, who's not backing down. God bless the CEO of Goya, says that he supports the president, he supports the job making, the president's lowest unemployment figures for Hispanics, for minorities before the Chinese virus hits. And what happens? They want to boycott an American company run by a Hispanic family. It's an outrage. It's a disgusting example of who the Democrats have become. If you disagree with them, you must be canceled. It is utterly un-American, Eric.
Amisha, yeah, let's talk about it, because I did a monologue on the cancel culture, and it's getting ridiculous. You have to vet every single word out of your mouth. If you make a simple statement like, I support the president, now Bobby Nyanwe is racist because he supports the president? Surely you can't agree with that.
Words have consequences. And at the end of the day, if you're someone who has a corporation that is as large and as substantive as Goya, and one that is largely consumed by the Latino population, let's remember a lot of the people who are leading the cancellation for this are people who don't consume Goya products anyway. When we talk about this, one of the phrases that I am bothered by the most is cancel culture, because conservatives often use it when there are racist comments made, or only when they feel like somebody has said something positive about the president, and then there are groups that don't necessarily agree with it.
But Amisha, may I just ask you why saying something positive about the president is racist in and of itself? I just don't get that.
No, there was an and between that for me. It was something and then something else. No, I don't think that people saying something positive about the president is racist. But when you look at the history of this president,
I mean, the cancel culture.
People are right to say this is a problem.
Amisha, I'm sorry to cut you off, but Sebastian, that's what the cancel culture mob, as I call them, that's what they did. They tried to cancel Goya because he simply said, Bobby Nyanwe simply said, I support the president, and they called that racist speech.
Yeah, this is, I think Amisha's living in an alternate universe. The idea that this individual is racist because he supports the president, and Amisha says we have the cancel culture on the right. Sorry, is Twitter, is Facebook run by conservatives? I don't think so. Look what happened to the New York Times, Eric. They bring in somebody who's not really a conservative, who's not a MAGA supporter, and she's accused of being an anti-Semite, of being a Nazi, as she is Jewish ethnically, and she resigns. That's cancel culture, and that's what the Democrat Party and the mainstream media represents.
Let me give Amisha the final word, about 20 seconds.
The only reason conservatives care about this New York Times comment is because it came from somebody from the New York Times who the right has castigated for years. So let's not act like the right cares about cancel culture. You care about it when it has something to do with Republicans or when it has something to do with a push against President Trump. Otherwise, you really don't.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Amisha Cross and Sebastian Gorka, thank you both for your time. Appreciate it. And congratulations, Sebastian, on a new gig.
Thanks, Eric.
Coming up, he's the president of Judicial Watch. You don't want to miss my interview with Tom Fitton. That's straight ahead. But I'd like to take a minute right now to preview an upcoming event I'm doing right after taping this show. I'm headed to the California-Mexico border with the U.S. drug czar. We'll do a flyover of the border, and also we'll be going into the tunnels that drug traffickers are using to bring illegal drugs into America. I'll have cameras rolling the whole time. This is part of a series I'm producing and hosting. The series is focusing on real America. I'll be bringing you video you won't see anywhere else and talking to people not used to being in front of a camera. Some of our show topics range from the war on drugs to inside NASCAR, where we'll go into the garages and the pits to show you how NASCAR, America's most popular spectator sport, has been dealing with life without their fans. And we'll also have Cuba circled on our map. The island just 90 miles off our shore is one of our most complicated foreign relationships. I'll be sitting down with the Cuban government to discuss the future of U.S.-Cuba relations. I have a lot more of these specials in the works, and we'll bring you some of the
United we stand, we never fall. This perilous fight, it takes one and all. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand, America. United we stand. We stand, America. United we stand. Ready to help, ready to serve. It takes everyone with steady nerves. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand, America. United we stand. We stand, American strong. City by city, state by state, town by town, stand American great. Everyone stands American strong. When strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand America. United we stand. We stand America. United we stand.
This week, the federal government carried out its first federal execution in 17 years, thanks to a last-minute decision by the Supreme Court. This comes as justices handed down decisions on many, many things. I want to get to that and some other things. We're going to bring in President of Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton. Tom, I'll get to the execution in a second. I really want to start with you. The Judicial Watch are suing the University of Delaware for Joe Biden's records. What specifically are we looking for? What do you think's in there?
Well, we're asking for his records. We're also representing the Daily Caller News Foundation. We want the records that from his Senate time that are being housed there. We also want records about decisions to withhold the records, the secrecy and the gamesmanship that's been going on. I don't know what's in there, but we do know there are records available under law for review. He's running for president. The American people have a right to the information. You know, this woman who accused him of sexual assault, I don't know if what she says is true or not, but she alleges there's information, potentially not only about what happened to her, but maybe what happened to others in the Senate records. He's boasted about talking to people like Vladimir Putin when he was running the Senate Foreign Policy Committee. So, you know, he was an important senator for many, many years, and his documents, I'm sure, will be interesting. And I think it's really quite unusual that he's going to such great lengths to withhold them. And the University of Delaware, we think, has no legal right to withhold them. That's why we're suing.
It's odd in this day and age with so much transparency that they would be allowed to hold them, number one. But what's the timing on it? If you do get some sort of access to these records, you're going to get them before the election?
I don't know. It depends how quickly the court moves. And there's nothing stopping Joe Biden from saying to the University of Delaware, look, I know that we have this agreement to hide my records until I disappear from our nation's public life, but I'm waiving that. I'm running for president, and people have the right to know. So I encourage Vice President Biden to intervene and release these records as well. There's nothing preventing him from doing that.
Well, I wouldn't hold my breath, Fitton, because that doesn't sound like that's going to happen. Let's talk a little bit about this federal execution, first time in 17 years. What begs the question, why first time in 17 years?
Well, because you have the legal establishment and many judges and this anti-death penalty movement that makes it very difficult to pursue death penalty executions. Of course, the Obama administration was philosophically opposed to them, more or less. And kudos to the Trump administration for starting them up again. The gentleman who was executed yesterday, he was a triple murderer. He killed a young 8-year-old in addition to her parents. And he was convicted, Eric, in 1999. And despite last...
100%. When I saw this, and boy, this was a bad guy. Why does it take 21 years to put someone to death for doing such a heinous crime?
Because you have an entire anti-death penalty industry that opposes the death penalty and litigates every step of the way. And even when they lose, they go back and fight over other issues. In these cases, for instance, the new slate of cases, executions that may take place, you had one person, people who opposed the death penalty complaining they couldn't travel there because of COVID. That had to be turned aside. And then you had an Obama judge here in the District of Columbia try to stall it further by suggesting that the medicine used to relax the person being executed is harmful. And the court said, this is just ridiculous.
Right.
We have to go forward. There's no basis in law for this.
I got 30 seconds left, Tom. A lot of people are up in arms about President Trump commuting Roger Stone's sentence. It's legal. Yeah?
Oh, I think he should go further. He should pardon him fully. He shouldn't spend a day in jail, especially when you have all of these crooks and abusers who are walking around who persecuted General Flynn, President Trump. You got Comey, McCabe, Clapper, all of them. They haven't even been touched, and yet we're going to start harassing people like Stone over basically for specious reasons. He should pardon everybody caught up in the investigation.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Tom Fitton, the president of Judicial Watch. Each week we honor first responders killed in the line of duty protecting this great country. Officers Ismael Chavez and Edelmiro Garza with the McAllen Police Department in Texas were both killed last weekend during an ambush. Officer Chavez was a science teacher and football coach at the local high school before joining the department 2.5 years ago. Officer Garza served the department for 9 years. Our deepest condolences to your families. Rest in peace, officers.
America, one nation, from Florida to St. Louis to Seattle. America This Week, America's fastest growing political show, delivers facts, not falsehoods.
Well, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I appreciate the opportunity to clear some of it up.
Hard-edged opinions.
We can no longer rely on China to be the primary producer of so many critical products that we need at a time of crisis.
Tough topic debates.
Has the mainstream media vetted Joe Biden the way they vetted others on the right?
I just believe that all women have the right to speak their truth and that those truths should also be investigated. The end, regardless of what political party they are a part of.
America This Week reveals the topics and issues that pulse throughout America. Fighting COVID-19.
We're working with every single state to be able to detect outbreaks before they spread into the community.
And the path forward.
Getting back to some degree of normality, that will come. We will get over this.
America This Week investigates chaos at the southern border.
Go, 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 go.
The poisoning of America.
It's in the soils, it's in the water, and it's in our blood.
toxic chemicals linked to multiple cancers found in towns across America.
We were poisoned, and we are still poisoned.
Almost every day, there is a new community that is finding out that their water is contaminated.
America This Week relentlessly seeks the truth on your behalf.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America This Week.
United we stand, we never fall. This perilous fight, it takes one and all. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand, America. United we stand. We stand, America. United we stand.
He's a former NFL player who is now a pastor and part of Black Voices for Trump Jack Brewer. Thank you for being here. Big fan of football, Jack. Thanks again for showing up. So I want to talk a little bit about this cancel culture. This week we found out that the NFL, the Redskins, have decided to abandon their logo and their team name. So what are your thoughts on all this surrounding the cancel culture?
You know, it's tough. I mean, there's pressure coming from all angles. You know, you wonder, when is it going to end, or when is really the focus going to get on to the real issues that we're facing as a nation. You know, I can't speak for all Native Americans. You know, my great grandmother was Native American, so I have it in my blood. The name never offended me, but I can't speak for everyone else. So if the name does offend people, I think in America you have the right to voice your opinion. I think the sad reality is that you know, you only start to see these type of changes when it affects the pocketbook. I think that's really what's so sad. You know, the CEO, Frederick Smith of FedEx, who's also an owner of the Washington Redskins, you know, for all these years, a couple of decades now, said nothing about changing the name. All of a sudden, when it starts to hit the pocketbook, you make social justice changes. I don't think there's any room to blend, you know, social justice and oppression with politics and profit. I think those.
Well, let me take it. Let me take from where you left off here. What about Colin Kaepernick? Now, you know, at first there was a serious pushback on Kaepernick, and now everyone seems to be, including the NFL, seems to be embracing Colin Kaepernick. His kneeling for the national anthem. Is Colin Kaepernick's change? Has he become, you know, kind of from goat to hero now?
For some people, I think that's always existed, where people really got behind the Colin Kaepernick movement as their leader. He's never been my leader. I respect him. I think everyone in America has the right to peacefully protest, and Kaepernick hasn't necessarily hurt anyone. I don't need to agree with his political views, but I think that's what's beautiful about America, is that we should all be able to express ourselves accordingly. I think, you know, where we have issues is the hypocrisy. I think the hypocrisy is where we have issues. You can't speak for in the support of African Americans, but then you go to other parts of the world and you speak out against that. I mean, you know, Colin Kaepernick has supported some pretty evil people in other countries, whether it's Iran and dictators and people that have caused a lot of confusion and death to folks around society. So I think it's about being consistent with your message and not being a hypocrite. You know, Colin Kaepernick has made a lot of money from Nike and from, you know, having his social justice causes. And so you got to question whether someone's doing things for money motivated or doing it for the principle.
Jack, I have about 30 seconds or so. Can you weigh in on the NFL's decision for the first weekend, to play the African American national anthem alongside the United States national anthem?
You know, I think, again, it's appeasing. It's not leading. I didn't even know that there was an African-American national anthem. I think we all need to unite and have one anthem, whatever anthem that is. We need to lock arms together under one nation. That's the reason why we live in the land that's the most sought-after place in the world. People from all over the world leave oppressed areas to come to the United States. We need to start celebrating our wins instead of sitting and keeping our focus on our losses. I think there's a lot of healing we can all do. And there was only one man that ever walked this earth that was perfect, and that was Jesus. And I think we need to start realizing that again as a nation.
You said Jesus, not Yeezus, right? I'm just kidding. Just kidding right there. We're going to leave it there. Jack Brewer, thank you very much for your time.
God bless you, bro.
You too. Remember, if you want to make sure you never miss an episode of America This Week, just set your DVR. We have a complete list of times and cities on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com/America Bowling, all one word. We're also putting all of our shows on YouTube. So if you missed a show or want to rewatch an interview, subscribe to our YouTube channel there.
United we stand, we never fall. This perilous fight, it takes one and all. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand, America. United we stand. We stand, America. United we stand. Ready to help, ready to serve. It takes everyone with steady nerves. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand, America. United we stand. We stand, America strong. City by city, state by state, town by town, stand American great. Everyone stands American strong. When strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand America. United we stand. We stand America. United we stand.
America This Week, America's fastest growing political show, points out how rough and tumble politics shape opinion in every region in our country. We tell American stories, stories that touch our people, determine our politics, focus on the future of America.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America This Week. Well, thanks for joining me for another episode of America This Week. We just want to remind everyone who is watching, we have a standing invitation to Joe Biden or any member of his campaign to come on the show. Our team has reached out every week for months now, and we'll do whatever it takes to make that happen. Anyway, we're here in the heart of summer. Your vacation plans may have changed or disappeared this year. Tonight, I want to leave you with a little inspiration for your summertime plans. Enjoy the dog days of summer. Well, like this dog. Have a great night, everybody. Coming up, he's the president of Judicial Watch. You don't want to miss my interview with Tom Fitton. That's straight ahead. But I'd like to take a minute right now to preview an upcoming event I'm doing right after taping this show. I'm headed to the California-Mexico border with the U.S. drug czar. We'll do a flyover of the border, and also we'll be going into the tunnels the drug traffickers are using to bring illegal drugs into America.